Hey guys, and welcome back to the Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with with the help of my fellow Outer Rim admin and some special guests, we'll be talking about the latest chapter in The Mandalorian, which is Chapter 14, The Tragedy. And I'm joined by our fearless founder, Josh. What's up, man?
Hello.
And also, we're joined, hailing from the Certain Point of View podcast, Michael and Ben Hoover. Welcome, guys.
What's up, everybody?
Hello there.
You want to just really quickly tell us about your show before we move into the main review?
Yeah, so Ben and I started the podcast just over a year ago now, I guess. And we basically just decided, we found ourselves talking about Star Wars for a couple hours all on end, every time we got together. So we were just we should do a podcast maybe. Yeah. And so so basically we just talk about a whole bunch of stuff Star Wars, whether it's just rankings or more deeper thematic topics and stuff like that. So all to do with Star Wars, lots of different types of episodes on there. Josh came on at one point. We talked about The Last Jedi and stuff
for
like that.
3 hours.
We had to
Rookies.
cut it into episodes. So and then we have our Certain Point of View discussion group on Facebook as well. That's been a really fun, lively group, especially lately. And so we're that's all going really well also. So,
yeah.
All right. And so moving into this episode, so a quick synopsis. This one is written by Jon Favreau and directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So Mando follows Ahsoka's guidance to the Jedi Temple, or Jedi something, I don't know if it's a temple, on Tython. And as Baby Yoda calls out through the Force, Boba Fett shows up along with his new cyborg sidekick, Fennec Shand. They demand Boba's armor back, but then the Empire shows up, and together they join together to kill a whole bunch of stormtroopers. And that's the episode. So, how did you guys feel about the tragedy? I'll go to Michael first.
Okay, so I really like this whole season. I really, really, really enjoyed this episode. I have a few minor critiques. I'm sure we'll get into it. But I really, really enjoyed it. I think this season is doing a great job of maintaining what this show is about, which is it's about Din, and it's about this relationship between Din and Grogu. Mm-hmm. And even when we have people like Boba Fett or Ahsoka or Bo-Katan come into the show does not become about those people. It maintains that it is about this relationship between the child and Mando. And I again, this episode had all of that, as well as just stuff that expanded the world a lot. Had a few minor issues here and there. We'll talk about those, I'm sure. But those are my overall feels. I really, really enjoyed this episode. Lots of jaw-dropping moments.
Yeah, speaking to that, I was really impressed with, even though this episode could have so easily just been drowned in the action, and it kind of was in the middle, but they were able to constantly keep it grounded in Mando and Child. The beginning was so much that, the end was so much that. They're able to keep the focus on the story, even when it's just crazy desperado action happening.
100%.
Ben.
Yeah. I think that it's like you said, it was a lot of action this episode. I think the best description I can give is that it was kind of just like 12 different oh crap moments, all kind of in sequence, and I thought it was well structured, well done. I'm happy it was only 30 minutes. I think that this was an episode that benefited from it being shorter, and not trying to just fill time, Mm-hmm. So I thought this was an episode that used its time wisely, gave us some really great action, some good nostalgia feels, and also gave us some good heartbreak, I guess.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Obviously, I do like that it was a shorter episode as well, just because I don't really think my nerves could have taken much longer. Could have taken much more. Rodriguez definitely kept the tension as tight as he possibly could. And as you all mentioned already, they kept it grounded in the relationship between Mando and the child. And there was that constant worry in the back of your mind. Are they going to get to the child? Are they going to get to the child? Yeah. And so even as you're watching this action occur, which was spectacular, it was, as Gabe said, Robert Rodriguez desperado style to the hilt. it was grounded in the emotional relationship.
Yeah.
Still, that whole time. And I actually watched this episode twice because it was, short enough, and I squeezed in a couple of watches. And, Ben, you mentioned the structure of it. I really appreciated that too, because at the beginning of the episode, you have that really tender moment between him and Grogu, which I'm going to have to work very hard to try to say because it still doesn't feel natural. But I like it. It's just we've been saying the child or Baby Yoda as
for a year now,
for a long time, and habits are hard to break. But there was that very tender moment between them at the beginning with the ball, which obviously Grogu loves the ball, and Mando says, you have to promise to go with them, when I reunite you. And so that was just a very tender moment, and it was setting up what was to come, and then near the end, when he's, the Razor Crest has been destroyed, which is tragic in and of itself.
That is,
Grogu is obviously taken, and he finds the ball in the wreckage, and those emotions are recalled for him, and the connection that he has to that creature that he didn't even want to take care of, to begin with, and has been kind of forced into it, but has grown to really care for this creature. And even it was an interesting dynamic too, because he lost hope. He did. And he had been strong for so long, and so long, I can push through, I can do this. But with his ship gone and with Grogu taken, he's like, the child's gone, it's over, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it took others to say, no, we had a deal, we're gonna follow through. And so it for one of the first times, somebody else had to be strong for him instead of him having to be strong for everybody, everybody else. So yes, that's what I gotta say about that episode.
And speaking of other people, there are some other interesting people in this episode. So how did we feel about Boba Fett's grand re-entry into Star Wars canon? And we had that one shot in the pilot, but that didn't give us much. And he's a very different person than we last saw. Like his time in the belly of the beast obviously did a real number on him, and it's interesting. Let's start with Ben first. Like, what did you think about Boba Fett's reintroduction and where he is character-wise?
Yeah. Well, when I saw Slave One flying in, I almost jumped out of my seat. I was like, "Excuse me, huh?" Like, because I was like, okay, we may or may not see Boba again at some point, whatever, like, cool. But like when I saw Slave One, it was like a different feeling for some reason. I was almost more excited to see the ship than I was to see Boba again. But whenever he did, he was talking and he was giving us some character and all that stuff, I was actually kind of impressed at how much I enjoyed it. I always kind of felt like I wasn't going to care, like whenever he came back, just because I never cared about Boba Fett personally. He looked cool, but like other than that, I never really cared to see too much more about him. But they actually did some pretty interesting stuff with his character that I thought actually expanded on, sort of his origins in a way. And I really loved that, we found that Jango was a foundling. And that kind of gave grounds for not only him being able to wear the armor, but also why he would want to help get Grogu back. Because like I think the first time I watched the episode twice. The first time I watched it, I was a little confused. I was like, why does he like suddenly want to help get the child back? Like he's just a random character, but it makes sense. Like the second time I watched, I was like, oh wait, his dad was a foundling. And so he wants to help another foundling essentially. Like he knows what it's like. And so I thought that was a cool story idea. and I thought it was a good way to sort of connect those two. Also, just great action, seeing Tamura Morrison, hearing his voice was another like really cool moment for me too. Like whenever I heard him talk, I was just like, oh man, it's
That
just
New
it's
Zealand
Django.
accent.
It takes me back to Attack of the Clones, man. And not in the bad way. Like I was actually really happy. That's like the stuff I liked in that movie. So
for sure.
I thought it was really good. I like that they used it as an opportunity to also expand on the character, not just be like, hey, we brought him back. I thought that was really good.
And a quick note, I think his performance in this one short episode is actually stronger than his performance in Attack of the Clones, actually.
Yeah.
I really thought that he brought a lot of emotional gravitas to the role. And, granted, in Attack of the Clones, much younger, he had to kind of have that stone, face.
He wasn't supposed to be an emotional type of
No,
character.
he wasn't. And he really... Anyway, we can speculate all we want.
I do want to really praise Tamura Morrison's performance. Like, I didn't really know what to expect from him. Like, he was suffering from George Lucas syndrome in the prequels, and he was an Aquaman. He was good, but I think he might have given the best performance in this show to date in this episode. Because one of my criticisms of the show, I think, is that the acting has been kind of rocky quite often. And he just walks in and owns the screen. Just the nobility and that sense of danger and violence lurking underneath, and just he's so freaking good. Just as an actor watching that, I was like, oh, the show's kind of been missing this, because I feel like a lot of the performances have been a little iffy.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you just said. For the first time, I felt something about Boba Fett. Honestly, I don't have a problem with Boba Fett. I just never really cared too much. Like, when all the rumors were going around that he was coming back, I was always like, I know Jon Favreau just wants to do a Boba Fett show. I know that's what he wants to do. Is he going to bring him back in and just kind of have this be like a see, look where we are, look at who this is kind of a moment? And that's not what we got at all. We got a nuanced, interesting, brutal character.
Yeah.
Ben said pretty much everything that I'm kind of feeling, except that I have to talk about his just total brutality.
Go for it.
Oh my God, y'all! What the way, and this is Robert Rodriguez as well. The way that he directed these scenes in particular was really, like, it really got me. I don't know how y'all felt about it, but like, man, that one shot of him, of the staff, I can't remember. I always forget what it's called.
Gaffy stick.
Gaffy stick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That one close up shot of him dragging that on the ground right before he just nailed this. I love, there's something about seeing Stormtrooper helmet explode that it makes me just really, really happy.
Yeah.
So I just loved it. And I did really love the nod to Attack of the Clones with the, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the galaxy. I love that nod.
Because he said galaxy instead of universe.
Yeah.
This time.
I did notice that.
Yeah, I think without a doubt that's the best looking hand-to-hand combat we've seen on this show. And like they don't cut. Like they follow through the entire motion, and reaction happens in a single shot. The camera work is super stylish, and and just the low angles he shoots it from, and the music that's happening, it's kind of out of this world, I think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
also
out of all,
the ferocity, the kind of that Maori snarl that he carries on his face, it's like real. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the directors that have done an episode so far, Rodriguez knows action better than any of them. And so, I mean, I think that's what he brought. I mean, that's what he brought to the table, was his experience directing directing action. Obviously, Waititi has a lot of experience with that too, with, the last episode from season 1, which is way up there with one of my favorites. I mean, you can tell the difference. I mean, it's very interesting how, all the episodes have been good, but you can tell the difference between a seasoned movie director.
Yes, for sure.
And someone else. That's kind of just making their way. And I think they've all been good. I've even seen a lot of progress with Filoni's live action direction,
Leaps and
especially
bounds.
Based upon last episode. Because the first episode that he did in season 1,
that final
I'm
action
not
sequence
so sure.
that final action sequence when he rescues Baby Yoda is something else, though.
That is
we'll
true.
defend that.
It is awesome.
True. I mean, he's very talented, but it's
And
been
that
interesting.
episode, sorry, I was going to say, and that episode is better than his second episode last season.
Yes.
I need to go back and rewatch now. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I without a doubt, I think one of the things that happens here is that Rodriguez is not trying to adapt his style in a way that even, guys like Peyton Reed or Taika Waititi, these experienced seasoned directors, or even Favreau, like, he's not trying to adapt his style, to Star Wars. He's just doing his thing, and he just does whatever he wants. And I love that, in that, if you've been watching the show, these episodes, these reviews, that I really paid a lot of attention to filmmaking direction, and so I love that he's able to let loose his style. Also, it gets a little bit. I do have a kind of a criticism of just the way the action is handled. It does get very Desperado in kind of a bad way, just because of how ridiculous that action is, to the point where, like, he gives us a close up of that ship, and there is definitely no more than a dozen guys in that ship, that transport, when they come out, and yet every time they turn around, there's another guy. They shoot down like 5 guys, they turn around, turn back, and there's another 10 guys right there. And just like everywhere they turn, there's another guy to shoot. There's 60, 70 dudes by the end of that, despite clearly, no more than like 10 to 12 guys coming out of the 2 transports. And it's just like, it's something you clearly show the transport landing. You could have showed it more. It's a small nitpick, but it's like,
Sure.
it does. Star Wars has never quite, at least in live action, or even most of the anime shows, given into that kind of total gunfight illogic that's going on. It's fun as anything, but it was kind of a little irritation. Just like you're messing with the established tone and reality of Star Wars, but it's fun.
Yeah. My main issue with this episode wasn't even that. I actually didn't even notice that, and I kind of am sad about it now that I know about it. But my big issue was the jetpack. It's a big issue for me, and I'm really like, I don't like to just wallow in the things that drive me crazy, but like, that was such a clear, like, okay, close up shot on the jetpack to show you we're setting this here so he doesn't have it later. And then, like, he has way more than enough time to get it later. He should have picked it up, but he couldn't have it for the last sequence because he would have beaten those guys. And also Boba had to be on his ship so that he couldn't use his jetpack either. And so, like, I was like, this is like, that's like the most contrived I felt at any point this season. That was the most contrived thing that I've noticed, and it kind of frustrated me. Yeah,
you had 100 stormtroopers shooting at them. Just have a stray shot, take it out.
Yeah.
That also the lack of threat. I'm getting a little sick of stormtroopers being useless.
Oh,
like,
they're terrible.
When you read the books, when the Empire shows up, there's like a palpable sense of dread. Like, the Empire is here, we are screwed. The only thing we can do is run. Like, that's kind of been the way Star Wars has been shown. But then in the movies and the show, it's just like, we'll just mow through all of it, and it takes away that sense of threat and fear. Whereas I think they could have functioned this fight around like a constant, like, steady retreat, where like we're constantly being overwhelmed, we're surviving, but make it scary and tense. This like have you seen like Lone Survivor, like that kind of running gun battle? Like we're surviving, but it's really, really tense and scary, instead of just, fun, just shoot everybody, no one cares. We'll stand in the open, they'll surround us like with 50 guys all shooting at us, and no one's gonna get hit because it doesn't matter, because they're stormtroopers. And it was it's been a fun joke, but let's make the Empire scary again.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one thing, just as an example, that Rogue One did so well.
Yes.
Holy smokes, guys. Like when the Empire shows up in Rogue One with stormtroopers or gosh, I can't remember what the all black troopers
Death
in
Troopers.
Rogue,
Death Troopers.
yeah, the Death when they show up, it is on. And there is a sense of dread in Rogue One when the Empire shows up, and Krennic, who I absolutely love, by the way. The good news in this episode is, even though the stormtroopers were used as a punching bag, the introduction of the Dark Troopers was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm surprised we didn't even get a fight.
Yeah,
I am too, but it was almost more like they're coming in. They're the cavalry. You know, the stormtroopers are the pawns. They're expendable. We're sending in the Dark Troopers. They descend upon Grogu, box him in, and at that point, you're like grabbing.
Yeah.
You're like like this the whole time, and they take him. I mean, the true sense of dread in that whole episode was that moment. Because you knew what it meant,
right?
And it's been building, because let's be honest, for the past season and a half, at some point we knew in the back of our minds that eventually the Empire was going to catch up with them. And at least I did. I always assumed at some point Grogu would get captured. Always assumed it. Yeah. But they did a good job making you wonder if it was going to happen this time. Until the very end. Very end. So
it happened sooner than I was expecting within the structure of the show. To now where I'm kind of wondering if Gideon and his thing is going to survive this season. I can see them taking them out and then moving the story on somewhere else for season 3. So how are you? What are you guys' thoughts on all the Baby Yoda stuff and where they end, and what do you think is going to happen? I mean, obviously Mando's going to come save him, but anything bigger than that?
I feel like he I feel like he's gonna get rescued, but I also, there's that little part of me that's like, I don't know, what if he's not? Like, what if by the end of the season...
Don't even say it. Don't say it. Don't you dare.
What if the end of the season leaves us with him still not being back with, the Mando? And what if it even has him kind of... I mean, we've seen from the beginning that Baby Yoda has a tendency to use the dark side sometimes. And he's very scared and very angry right now. He's very vulnerable. Sleepy. He's very sleepy. That's part of the dark side. When you fall asleep, it's dark. But he, we've seen these little tendencies in him. I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but I could see them kind of pulling that way a little bit, at least for some interesting storytelling, or to kind of make that moment where he's finally rescued really we really feel it. Because, I feel like they've been giving us a lot of episodes that wrap up pretty nice and tight and give us the full story or whatever. And then this time it's just like, whoa, he's gone, I almost feel like it would be a disservice to the moment at the end of this episode for him to just be rescued next episode. You know what I mean? It's either going to be an end of season thing or even into next season, I think, before we really get a rescue.
And that dark side, the dark side that seems to be looming, also seems to tie back in with the story they're telling about, trying to find a Jedi Master from. He spent the entire episode calling out in the Force, and it would be really weird storytelling if that doesn't get paid off with someone. So someone's going to come in, and we're probably going to have some interesting stuff about what is Baby Yoda's future going to be with I don't view the dark side as as much as I'm not as scared of the dark side as some Star Wars fans are. I think he's just a person. He gets angry. That's a natural part. It's just about balancing within himself. Yeah. So I think there's definitely some interesting conversations that are going to happen. And but when we saw Ahsoka, I was like, no way he's leaving Baby Yoda with her. They're going to stay together. but now I could see, in a season and a half, I mean, half a season from here, they could split up maybe, like, for, it'll be hard because that's the soul of the show, but
right.
who knows?
I mean, I could see, the quest that Ahsoka sent them on to the magic rock, as Mando called it, and Yoda Baby Yoda having to call out in the Force. I could see them going in a few different directions. I could see that being a test that Ahsoka put forth herself, and she could be the one that actually shows. She could be the one that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. I know some people are saying Ezra may somehow show up somewhere. This is way more out there, but Luke Skywalker is in fact alive, currently. And so
Leia's also alive.
Leia's around. And so I think we're all interested to see, okay, the Jedi that shows up, who is that going to be?
What if a fallen Jedi shows up? That would be an interesting way to take it. If the person who comes is not there for Baby Yoda's good.
What if Palpatine shows up?
What? Say what?
So what if Palpatine shows up?
On that crane.
The episode is called the Dead Speak.
Please, no.
No, he's not even there yet.
No,
he hasn't even possessed that clone body at that point. Anyway, but and speaking of which, obviously, they're gonna be back to trying to experiment with Grogu, and as part of bringing back the Empire under what eventually becomes the First Order. So it's going to be interesting to see if, when, and how all of that kind of ties together, which I really appreciate, because I was thinking about this and talking to Gabe, some of the other Outer Rim guys about it a little bit ago. In The Force Awakens, when the New Republic, specifically Hosnian Prime, is blown up, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree.
I just don't. I don't care, because there's not enough context for what the New Republic is and how it operates and everything. And Hux's speech is amazing. I mean, I love that moment where Hux is giving the speech, and it's so like evil and authoritarian, and it's incredible. And the visuals of it all, but even when you see some faces of some citizens on Hosnian Prime and they're gone, I feel nothing. And and so I appreciate what The Mandalorian is doing within the context of the show. And I know we have books too, which I obviously need to get to, and feel like a terrible Star Wars fan sometimes.
Same.
Because those are going to help, but in a visual medium, they're kind of filling out, okay, New Republic is, the New Republic is only about 5 years old. The Empire is obviously trying to make a comeback, because obviously they would try to make a comeback. And we're getting some context through a show about how that all looks, and fleshing that out, and that is going to benefit in the long term so much, to connect even the Skywalker saga together in my opinion, especially this 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens.
Now that Cara Dune is like an official deputy of the New Republic. So when you talked about the Empire being back, it reminded me
Baby Yoda is Snoke.
It reminded me of probably the dumbest bit of dialogue in this show, when Boba Fett flies out of the cloud and he sees the light cruise, like, oh, the Empire's back. And like, they can't be, the Empire's back, as they stand in a field of 50 stormtroopers they just shot. Yeah, the Empire's like, who have you been fighting all this time? I don't get what does that line even mean? Like,
Impossible.
He's been fighting the Empire this entire show. And now they're
Didn't he
shocked
make
that
some type of a comment though about how this wasn't, and I can't remember specifically what it said. They're like the context I thought of it was the Empire is back. Like this is more than just
it's a
like a
light
cell of
cruiser. It's not even a
stormtroopers.
Star Destroyer.
right. You know, there was some type of context there, and I can't remember the exact line that they said to kind of make it fit. And you know, there, but I get it. I totally get it. It's like, oh yeah, you've been fighting Empire. But it's been more kind of like warlords and factions as opposed to like this centralized.
But where did you think those transports came from? They came from space. There's a ship up there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I feel like there were a couple of lines of dialogue in this episode actually that I was like, all right, like there was that one, and then it was there was one that felt very, gosh, it felt like an old show that had like dramatic music playing in the background. Like if you've ever watched Legend of Korra, it felt like a Nuktuk episode or whatever. Was whenever he was talking to Boba Fett and he's like, I have a sniper on the ridge, and she's like, and I never miss, and he's like, what? It's what's her name again? He's like Fennec, like, and it just shows like this little clip of her just like aiming down sights. It felt a little like I don't know, something about it just felt really like
it's like they're trying really hard to make sure we know who everybody is, just in case we forgot.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like Fennec is a cool character. I like Fennec. Nothing against her.
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it was more so the moment. It felt funny to me.
This show is a cowboy serial, so
it is, which is why I was able to like let it go. It was there are moments of dialogue sometimes like that where I'm like, all right, like I'll move on, but that was a little silly.
This whole episode is such a Western, like the cowboys are they're in the high ground. The Indians are coming. You got to fight them off. Like that's I love that.
It's also a video game mission where you have to protect your partner who's doing his thing or whatever.
And speaking of that whole crazy, awesome, and over the top action sequence, I think my favorite moment, and I was like, she's gonna do it, isn't she? She's gonna do it. She's gonna push the rock down. She's gonna push the rock down. Yeah. No. I just was like, oh, it's happening. It's happening. Yeah. She's gonna push the rock down the hill.
God.
And we allow so much abuse of stormtroopers. I know we keep talking about that, but it's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna get crushed by the rock. Yes.
And none of them think I just should move to the right or the left just a little bit. They think they're going to outrun this thing like Indiana Jones. They can't do it.
Yeah.
It's hokey.
Or that one that was trying to shoot the gun at it. Like,
yeah, he's going to break it apart like a Galaga.
He did not move. He's so committed.
Yeah.
I mean, but he had been shooting that minigun along the ridge already and like not breaking any of it off really. Maybe like little chunks. What did you think he was going to do with like a giant boulder?
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
One last thing before we close, I do want to talk about just the awesome scene with between Baby Yoda and Gideon, where he gets to be like he's had so little presence this season, and he gets to do his little monologues. Like he's so evil. He taunts babies. That's how bad he is.
Yeah. He also has shackles perfectly sized for babies, which is some Nazi crap. All right. Yeah. Like
oh my gosh.
Hey, go get the baby size shackles real quick.
The image of Baby Yoda in shackles.
They're in the bottom drawer.
So bad.
We have a bunch of them.
So horrible. But
the key's under the mat.
Yeah.
You have to...
Oh. Sorry, you were saying.
I don't remember. Yeah, but just like
it was about Gideon.
I love watching Giancarlo Esposito being really, really evil, and him being evil to a baby is just a new height.
Oh my gosh,
it's a new height.
And pulling out that darksaber too, like you're not ready for such things. Like
he taunts him with the darksaber.
Yeah,
which I mean, next episode or the last episode, Bo-Katan's gonna be back. I mean,
come on,
I think we can pretty much expect that. I think.
Also, we're probably gonna have a duel, Darksaber versus Beskar spear. Like
Oh yeah.
that's there for a reason.
Yeah,
Also,
100%.
The Dark Troopers, are they made of Beskar?
I doubt it.
Because we know the Empire has access to Beskar.
But they're
That's
black and Beskar's maybe.
I mean, what if they colored it black? They're the Empire. They can do whatever they
Possible.
want.
It's got a little spray paint.
Little spray paint, Yeah. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Might make them really menacing. They are.
They're already scary.
Or they could just be as expendable.
Yeah, they're
as
already
Storms.
scary.
Yeah, they are scary. Right before that, though, seeing Baby Yoda defend himself and really, again, use those stormtroopers as,
Dude.
I mean, just wail on those stormtroopers. And then, of course, Moff Gideon is like, some stormtroopers, other stormtroopers try to break it up, and Moff Gideon is so evil. He's like, no, let's watch.
No, let it play out.
Let him keep going. Can we say?
Let it happen. Let it happen.
Can we give a little bit of love to the stunt actors
Yeah, seriously.
in this episode, between that scene and the Boba scene where they're like, dude, that one where he like fell down and like got like landed on his back on a rock and like twisted his body around. That's some stunt work, man.
Yeah.
I want to see a stuntman react video on this episode.
I do
know.
too. That would be
Me
really
too.
great. I felt like they deserve some love
because they've had Lauren Mary Kim, I believe is her name.
She played the
Ahsoka
armor.
double. Yeah, she played the armor. She played Fennec Shand. She played the magistrate in the Jedi. She's been all over this show, so they've already had her on once.
Yeah.
So any last things y'all want to mention before we close out? Ben first.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to mention that I did feel, I wasn't like disappointed. It was more so like it felt like an odd use of an odd first use of the Dark Troopers to just kind of walk up to Baby Yoda and just fly away with him. Especially since they're so like menacing, and we've been watching just like stormtroopers fight the whole episode. It felt like we could have maybe seen at least a little something from them, but it wasn't enough to make me mad. They served their purpose, I guess, for the episode. I was a little disappointed by that, but I mean, like, other than that, and my little cheesy lines here and there, which I'm usually fine with. I loved this episode. I thought the action was great. I thought that the story, the bits of story that we got from it that kind of moved the ball forward a lot. This was a very consequential episode, and I like that we're gonna see we're gonna see Boba some more, we're gonna see Fennec some more. That's exciting. I feel like we're kind of getting the crew back together, and even bringing Bill Burr back, so
Yeah.
it's interesting.
About you, Michael?
Yeah. So for me, I think the only other really criticism I have, it's not even a criticism. It's just my expectations in my head for the planet itself were a little different. I thought we would see more of a temple type of a situation. And so I was a little bit disappointed at first with the whole, like, okay, so this is just the top of a mountain, like Stonehenge with a rock in the middle of it. Okay, cool. So I moved past it really quickly, but like that was a little bit disappointing because I was hoping to see some Jedi Temple stuff like in Rebels a little bit. Maybe not quite that crazy, but that was really my only other thing. I loved, like I said at the beginning, my biggest thing with this episode, and it was also clear in the last episode, is this show is continuously about the father-son relationship between Din and Grogu. And like Josh said earlier, that whole scene at the beginning, dude, I've every time, and I've rewatched it, like I think I've watched it 3 times now. That beginning scene gets me really hard. Like it, and I'm not even a dad yet. And it gets me like, I feel he is trying to convince himself that he's doing the right thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you can tell at the end when he's talking about how he's talking about where he's taking him and like, do you understand why I'm doing this? And like, I feel like he's really trying to convince himself that he's even doing the right thing. And it really, dude, when he was like, when he was like, no, you're a really special kid. When the nice lady said that you had all that stuff, it was just like, oh my God, he's such
The
a
nice
dad.
lady.
And
Oh my gosh. So
and
like,
how happy he is just to
I know.
have Baby Yoda look at him when he says his name.
when he says his name, oh my God,
And
dude.
then giggle.
And then at the end, near the end, when he finds the ball in the wreckage, it's like,
Yeah.
the way that they have handled this relationship is just brilliant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why I love the show. I love the Jedi stuff that's come in randomly. I love all the action. I love the cowboy stuff. I love the samurai stuff. I'm here for all of it, but I come back for Din and Grogu.
Mhm.
And so whatever direction they take the show going forward, this to me is just like, this is why I'm here right now. So they have to give me a good reason later if they take Grogu away somehow. They have to like, I mean, they don't have to convince me, I'll come back, but I definitely am. I don't want him to be gone.
Yeah.
I need him.
I need him.
Any final thoughts from you, Josh?
Yeah. So, I appreciated this episode for the kind of emotional core, that it had. I kind of said that in so many ways a bit earlier, but I wanted to kind of circle back to that and why it's kind of important for me. And as I've watched this, I've said from the very beginning of this show that I'm basically going in with zero expectations, which is what I always try to do with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I like filmmakers to be able to flex their creativity and bring me into it and convince me that it's real, and kind of leave my expectations as far away from it as possible. I mean, we all bring our expectations, but so I felt plenty of things while I've watched this show. This is Star Wars. It's well made, great action sets. You're definitely satisfying the fanboy, side on this stuff. But, and so I felt many things while watching it. But one thing that I haven't felt just yet, yes, I have here and there, but until this episode was kind of like the emotional payoff between their relationship. Mm-hmm. I think their relationship, and I think the relationship that they built over the last season and a half between Grogu and Din, that emotional payoff is kind of reaching its, peak, right now. And so, and so I really appreciate that they're paying that off, because as much as I love this show, and really, really enjoying it for what it is, I haven't been as like emotionally connected to it in that particular way, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I can see what they've been doing now is they've been giving us a little bit of Din and Grogu every episode, maturing their relationship. And now this episode comes along, and for the first time in a season and a half, I got emotional, legitimately emotional, watching one of these episodes in a way that has not happened yet. It really stirred something, in me while I was watching it, that more than just, oh, that was cool, and that was cool, and that was cool, or I've got, I need to see the baby, kind of things. Like you obviously always got to see the baby every single episode. You got to see the baby and get your fix. Yeah. But this episode struck a different chord for me than the episodes that came before. And I really appreciated that. And it's amazing that they were able to accomplish that within the 30-minute episode, but they wasted no time. There was no filler whatsoever. And they just got, and they got to it. And the episode from a structure standpoint is perfectly paced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my final thoughts, actually, I can't believe we didn't mention this, but I love location shooting. It's like the volume is amazing technology. It's allowed the show to exist, in a way that wouldn't have been possible without it. But it's also very often felt constraining, especially to the newbie directors. And like there are times where you can just see the wall, and just to be out in the open, and just the way that frees the camera. There's so many cool wide shots, drone shots, and stuff that Rodriguez is able to do that they just can't do in a 20, 30 foot room. And it just, I felt like I could breathe again. It was so nice, and I hope they find a way to, maybe, obviously they can't afford to do it every episode, but at least, once a season, twice a season, get out of the volume, get out, get outside, and and I think it does a world of good for the show.
I would never complain about that.
Yeah, I think that location shoot for that 30-minute episode was very expensive.
Yeah.
All right. So, real quick, I want to give you guys a chance to plug your podcast before we head out. Where can people find y'all?
Yeah, you can find us on any wherever you listen to podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere, I think. And then we release episodes every other week now. We've moved from every week to every other week just because of craziness in life, and we don't get paid for this. So, and then the big thing we're really plugging a lot right now is the Facebook group. It's actually growing pretty quick lately, and it's been very lively. It's a really great place to just talk about, as you guys know, the Outer Rim was very influential in us starting this group even. And so, but it's a very lively, fun place to actually have opinions and have people respect those opinions, even if they disagree. And we're very careful about that. And we're watching them too. And so, join a certain point of view discussion group on Facebook as well.
Somehow you decided to make me a moderator in there. Why'd you go and do that?
No, don't join them. Join the Outer Rim.
Join both. They're great.
No,
Yes.
No, Josh is a great moderator because he doesn't take any crap. He doesn't put up with any crap. I trust you.
Hey, there's some salty folks in there. Well, and there are some in the Outer Rim too, But for the most part, I love and really appreciate just kind of like the tone and the environment that we're setting for both groups. I really think that it has allowed fans to discuss this franchise that they love. In a place where, whether it's the Outer Rim or a certain point of view, where they're not reluctant to share what they think, as long as they're respectful and not outright bashing and being thoughtful with, with how they're going about explaining it. We're not going to disparage that even when we disagree. There's in the A Certain Point of View group, over the weekend, Michael, you tagged me in like something The Last Jedi related, and I was like, oh, why did he what have you done?
Why would he do this to me?
and I went back and forth with this really great guy, Travis. If you're listening, you are a great guy. I don't agree with anything you said. None. Pretty much nothing of what you said. But the
debate was healthy and respectful. Exactly. The debate it never got out of hand even for a second. It was very respectful. And that's the thing. Yeah. There's plenty of great room for debate with all of this stuff, and we encourage it just with respect. That's all. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will see you next week with whatever awesome episode they have for us. See ya.
Peace.
Adios.